When you've got a sore throat, it's comforting to know that there's a soothing, effective medicine in Strepsils, throat lozenges in a tin. And what's more, Strepsils fight infections that can cause sore throats in the first place. Fast-acting Strepsils, original or honey and lemon. Strepsils, medicine for sore throats.
I'm looking for the one with the softer bristles.
Softer bristles?
The small, round, hot one with steam at the push of a button.
Hey. Oh, God.
The new Clarol Flexi Brush, the brilliant new styling brush from Clarol. Softer bristles for a gentler touch. Steam styling for a kinder curl that stays in longer.
Have I really got softer bristles?
Is your name Clarol?
No, Willie.
You know, so interesting, really, and so pretty, I think, because really the basic shape is not pretty. But this little doll, she's carrying a basket with some flowers in, and what's she got? No, nothing in the other hand. And this one here, she's carrying a lovely sort of parasol. And is that some flowers in that?
A bunch of flowers. It's so different to the work that I mess about with clay.
It's sort of both ends of the scale, really, isn't it? Yours is fine. Yours is more porcelain, isn't it?
No, it isn't. I use the fine white earthenware, but that's stoneware, isn't it?
Yeah. But these are really, they're containers as well as being sort of nice ornaments, because the heads come off, and you've got a lovely container, you know, that you can use for...
Does she solely make these dolls?
No, dolls? She makes lots of things, really. The head she makes on the wheel. She starts off the basic shape and the body of the dolls. Yeah. This is all done on the wheel, and the heads. And then she lets them dry, and she lets them go, well, not completely dry, but to that leather stage, you know.
Yeah. You've lost me already. What's
leather hard, they call it.
Yes,
and it's when the clay is still damp, but you can't, it's not malleable.
Oh, yes. That's right. It's got firm, but it's still... it does look like leather at that stage, doesn't it?
Does. Does she fix the arms at that stage, Daphne?
Yeah.
Yes, and at that stage she uses slip, which is a mixture of sort of clay and water, to put all the decoration on at that stage. In fact, some of the detail is really lovely. And when I first met her, which was at Newbury Show, she had a store there, and this is what caught my eye, because she was actually doing pottery there, making things, doing some of the details on the dolls, and I saw her doing this hair, and in fact she uses an ordinary household sieve, you know, metal sieve, and she just pushes the raw clay through it, and to see all this clay sort of worming through it was really
children
fantastic.
used to do that with stuff.
Plasticine.
Yes, to make hair on the dolls.
Yes.
Yes,
and little worms.
Yes, and that's what
you've done this sort of pottery, haven't you?
Well, I haven't done very much of any pottery. I mean, I did some at college, and I've done a little bit since.
So you,
but not.
Yes, you probably know as much about the glazes, this type of glaze.
Yes, I'd have
do.
to look it all up in my books to know which glaze is which and which oxide is which.
Yes.
But she's used, you know, some shiny and some
is glazed.
It's something that I know nothing about, really.
Yes, that's all.
Yes.
So what happens when it comes out? I mean, is it that colour, that dark colour? Is that the original colour?
That's the colour of the clay.
Of the clay.
Yes.
Yes.
It's baked.
And then you paint on the white.
Yes, that's a glaze.
Yeah. Do you dip it or paint it or what?
That's slip, and she dips them in there, and then the detail she paints on with oxides, and then they're fired again.
Yes, because these are all underglazes, except the one, I suppose. That's all done in one fell swoop then.
Another thing I've seen is on some of the bonnets, there's a kind of linen effect.
Yes,
How
she presses
do that?
that. She presses that on.
Well, she'd probably roll it out on the linen, or put the linen on afterwards, and then because then you can lift it up in one when it's still soft, and then
you get the impression of the linen on there.
Yes,
I was very interested in how she came to be making them in the first place, really, because she'd started. I think when her children had started going to school, she went to a pottery evening class, like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And got on quite well, you know, and all the techniques and everything, and liked it very much. You know, you can do these things and then decide, you know, it isn't for you.
I thought everybody thought it's not for me. I never believed anybody really much went on from evening classes.
No. And she had a friend who was already an experienced potter, and this girl sort of said to her, well, really, you know, I think she'd already started making the dolls, and she said, really, I'm sure those would sell. Why don't you sort of start it up as a little venture? And so she's got a shed at the bottom of the garden, and she's got all her wheel and all her clay and
I suppose
everything.
it takes up quite a bit of room, does it?
Well, it's so messy.
Yes, that's right. It's messy. It's
Yes.
nice to have it not attached to the
Yes.
house.
Yeah.
And then she's got a kiln in her garage. And her son's a motorbike fanatic, so she shares the garage with him, and you sort of, crawl past the motorbike.
But you see, it's that sort of thing that if she's got a big kiln, that's the expense.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what you've got to consider when you're doing something like this. Because I mean, so many people make some lovely things. It's one of the nicest things to work in, I think, Clay.
I never have done. I've got a friend who started off exactly that way, though, but she makes pots. But there's Yes. something about them like these, a kind of sort of earthy feel about them. Yeah. You know? But I mean, she had the same kind of training, a kind of not professional training.
Would it
but
work
obviously
for-
had a lot of talent.
But Jill never makes any two the same. They're
Yeah.
all different, And if
Because they're
somebody
not in a
says to her,
mould.
"Can you make one?" Whatever their particular interest is, say knitting or something, she'd do a doll doing
But it
some
makes
knitting
them all nicer, doesn't it?
yes.
Yeah.
which is lovely because it makes them, nice
Would
to
it
give.
work for 2 or 3 people, say, to share a kiln in one person's house, or would that... You need one of your
You
own, do
need
you?
different temperatures for
Yeah,
different things.
That's the trouble.
Yeah.
Do you find that soufflés are difficult, in fact, in your aga?
Impossible, because I often have to wait a day just to cook the bread, so I couldn't wait a day to cook a soufflé. I'm going to have a new one, and then I'll have to control it.
As you need a day practically to make a decent batch of bread anyway, to be around, not to
Yes.
make it, but to be around. I suppose
Yes.
it wouldn't really matter. Anyway, this one is I think is a very interesting soufflé because it's a bit different, and it's an anchovy soufflé. With a very nice sauce using, not your favourite ingredient, smoked cod's roe.
No, I'm not keen on roes of any kind, actually.
No, well, I think you'll find that in a sauce, you might like them. So we begin by just the usual base, which is 1 ounce of butter, 1 ounce of flour, cook it together,
Yeah.
1/4 of a pint of milk,
Yeah.
and 3 egg yolks,
Yes.
beaten in.
Are you all right with your arm doing that? Do you want me to
Oh,
do...
bless you, it's very sweet of you. If
Do you
you
want me
do the
just to do
whites
this
for
one?
me, continue with those, I'd be
Okay,
grateful. I can
okay.
just about manage this.
Okay, because you don't want your elbow to get any
It's
worse.
terribly painful. No, I don't. And heaven only knows what I've done to it, but I shall find out tomorrow. Now, no salt, because I'm using anchovies. Now, a tin of the flat anchovies, which I soak in milk. Just soak them in a little milk, drain off the oil, soak them in a little milk for about an hour or so, and that will draw off the surplus salt.
Not water.
Not
milk.
water, no milk. Milk is much, much better. Takes the salt away.
No, honey.
Then I wring them out by hand, which is a bit messy and smelly.
Put them through
And
my
then
old mangle.
And then crush them down into a pulp, like so, and add them to the base. So there we are. We have the base of the soufflé. And meanwhile, I've got the oven at 190 or 375, which is about 5 on gas. And there is the base. Now, nice squeeze of lemon juice.
Can I just ask you, you
Yes,
know when
you
you
can.
said about washing the salt out of butter,
Yes,
you did that with water?
that's right. That's
this is
right.
milk?
There's not so much. There is really not so much salt. These are anchovies so heavily salted
Yes.
that the alkalinity of the milk, I don't know, it seems to bring out the salt much more effectively than
I just wanted to be sure.
water. Right, now I take a large bowl. A lot of people make the base in a large saucepan and try to incorporate from there, but I think, could you move that off, dear, please? Thank you. But I think it's better to tip the base out into a large bowl. It's lovely to have a comic working beside me,
Very
especially one
nice.
who knows what it's all about.
Well, I know.
That's good.
I know a bit, but I mean, past training at college and then teaching,
Yes.
obviously I haven't advanced beyond that. Because I've concentrated on sewing, you see.
Right, and how are those?
Well, they're not yet. Do you want me to turn them upside down and see if it falls out like I used to with
Not
school?
exactly, just lift up the
School
wrist.
children, I used to say, right, everybody turn your plates upside down.
Oh, miss.
It's lovely though, very exciting.
Will that do me? Not quite.
No,
Can I carry
no.
on with the sauce?
Yes,
if you
you do
could
that one,
forgive
go
me.
on.
Right. Well, while you're just finishing those, now the sauce again, a basic bechamel with a 1 ounce, but in this time nearly half a pint of milk, so you've got a much softer mixture.
Can't you make
Right.
one lot and divide it? No,
No, not really. You need
of course
it
I don't.
much thinner. That's right. And the smoked cod's roe, which I've taken the skin off, with a bit of skin, and broken it up as much as I can. And then I add to the sauce about 3 ounces
Oh,
of
not
that.
very much. Oh, well, I might like it then.
I'm going to make you taste this in a moment because I think you'd like it a lot. And then you have to break that down. Now, when you reheat the sauce, don't, for heaven's sake, boil it. Just break that down over a gentle heat if necessary, but this was boiling a moment ago,
Yes,
which
it
is
was.
why
Yes.
And
It is
how's
pretty
that
hot.
coming on?
It's
Is it
all right.
coming on?
Yeah,
Good.
it's all right. I won't stop because it'll go runny again.
Some thick cream into the sauce. And again, a little more lemon juice. And this cuts the salt as well. That's it. And finally, chives.
Good.
Could be, if you haven't chives, very finely chopped spring onion tops.
Yes, they're a
Righto.
good substitute, aren't they?
Going to give you that to beat up over that, and that's marvellous. And thank you. Oh, you are a clever girl. Look at that.
Just
Look
right,
at,
that
look
is.
At that. Look at that. Absolutely
Absolutely
perfect.
right.
Absolutely perfect. Right.
I feel
Okay.
as though I should have a white cap on, you know, around my forehead.
Well, don't worry, Anne. I'll give you a job. How about that?
Yes. Bet you don't pay much.
No, I'm notorious for that. No, it's all in the perks. You get what you've made when you go home. How
What
about
were you
that?
saying about the eggs in this? You don't want them heated, don't want them boiled.
About the little fish roe eggs? No,
Yes.
I don't. No. Now, again, just reheat. That's okay.
Is that all right?
Carefully cut and fold. This is something that I find it difficult to teach people. They will try to break it down as they do it. Do you find that? Especially children.
Yes.
Teaching children. Very
Yes.
difficult to get them to do this properly.
Well, because beating is an easy movement, but that isn't.
No, it isn't.
You don't feel as though
because
getting
you've got to
anywhere.
bring the mixture from the bottom of the bowl
Yeah.
up onto the top,
Yes.
like so. And then 7-inch soufflé dish, the deep one, and you don't need, contrary to popular opinion, you do not need a collar on the deep soufflé dish.
Oh, not like the cold one we were doing the other
the cold
week.
one you do need
Yeah.
because it's a flatter dish.
Yeah.
And it should take, in the centre of the oven, it should take approximately 25 minutes or so. But the centre of it should be soft. In other words, rather like an omelette, it should be wet in the middle.
Oh, I see. Yes. But this is one of the ones where you've got to rush to the table as soon as it's ready, haven't you?
Well, you have really, yes. I could tell you there is a trick that some people use, that chefs use actually, to keep a soufflé hanging about when people are being tedious. I'm not going to tell you about it now.
Two little girls
and then,
here busy
for
whipping
the
things
crown, you know that you get the classic crown as it comes up.
Yes.
Where you just take your finger, your thumb, and run it round like that, around the edge like that.
You see, there's the ultimate...
And then you put that into the oven, and there is your sauce to serve with it when it's ready.
An ultimate tip. There's always something, you see, which you discover for yourself and pass on.
Oh, it's very
Isn't there?
true. Oh, it's very true. I mean, the
Not
odd
to
things
get
I've
out.
learned about sewing from you, even though I am no good at it, what you have told me has proved to be enormously
It's
helpful.
Yes, that's right. Now, Daphne. Now, Daphne.
Yes,
What's funny about that? Was it a friend of yours who
Yes,
phoned
surely.
you?
Yes. And she phoned and said, look, I'm trying to sew this thing. Now, my machine isn't working. It's all gathering up on the bottom, and I was supposed to... I mean, I don't know what her machine is, what make it is.
Yeah.
And she's very vague anyway, you know, and trying to tell me that it was all looping on the bottom, and I said, well, take it all to bits, clean it. The tension is probably wrong. But, I mean, how can you say it on the phone?
Maggie was saying that people are always saying to her the machine doesn't work, and it's true, isn't it? And I say that's absolute nonsense.
One of the commonest things is, as Daphne says, that all the top thread looping on the bottom.
Well, it's the bottom thread.
see,
The bottom thread, oh.
it doesn't matter.
Same thing.
You see, it's the principle of it. No matter what the machine does or how old it is or how new it is, the principle of the making of the stitch is exactly the same as it always has been. Absolutely,
Yes,
exactly the
yes.
same mechanically. I use this as a teaching aid to explain how a machine makes a stitch. So that that's one thread you've got on one side of the fabric. You've got 2 layers of material, and then on the other side you've got another thread, and I use contrast just to prove the point. And the perfect stitch is the one where the 2 colours loop exactly in between the 2 layers of material. And so therefore, if you're sewing on thick material, it's dead easy to get a good stitch. If you're sewing on chiffon, it's difficult.
It is.
Because it's, you know, it's not going to form exactly in the middle. If you're stitching on single material, like when you're zigzagging seams to neaten them, it's very difficult because you haven't got your 2 layers.
Yeah.
This is where people get confused.
Sometimes I have found on thin materials that one of the threads, sometimes the bottom one, will look as if it's just straight across with no indents.
That's right. Well, you
And
see,
the top one is...
it doesn't matter which is top or bottom.
Yeah.
Do you see?
Yeah.
It
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No.
Suppose I loosen this blue one terrifically. Suppose when it's threaded up, it's not controlled and there's a lot of blue.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is that red, top or bottom, is going to pull that blue through. You see? Because there's so much of it. So you're going to get blue as well on this side.
Yeah.
And lots of blue there.
I find this happens more so if I'm trying to do a zigzag stitch. I don't know why.
Well, then you do need to make an adjustment for a zigzag. That sounds as though it's your particular machine that needs a bit of checking up on. But you see, whatever sort of machine it is, the first thing, if it doesn't make a good stitch when you test it, and I always test it on a bit of fabric, always, the first thing is to unthread it and start again. Assume there isn't anything wrong and you've just made a mistake threading. And you know how on plastic reels you get a nick in the plastic? Make sure that is at the opposite end of the threading, because one of the main causes of breaking stitches and so on is that the thread gets caught in that nick.
Yeah.
See?
It's so simple when you say it. It's so logical.
But you
isn't
see,
it?
that's modern, because we never used to have these reels, did we?
No, just
The wooden ones have a nick in them as well.
So the nick's at the bottom there on that one. You then thread it according to your particular make of machine. Now the top thread, this green one, goes through a number of controls which make sure that when you pull it, it just comes through with slight pressure running
But that's
against
the one
you.
that's important, the tension one.
They are both important, and they're both under tension. Both threads are under tension.
But I mean the one with the numbers on.
Yeah, well this one, you see, this top one is controlled by one particular screw. You can't see it here because it's hidden in there. It's 2 discs together like that, and the thread goes in between. Now if when you try it out, the discs are too tight, it's going to stop the green thread getting through. So you just loosen it, but you don't go whirling and whirling. You turn that so that it's loosened just by a little fraction.
Sometimes it doesn't seem to have much effect on mine. I don't know.
Well, that's
Perhaps
your
it's
machine.
something else.
Yeah. Now, my machine's different to that one. My machine's got a round thing, almost like a clock face in the front.
Mine has
On the
too.
front,
with numbers
still
on.
with the
Yes.
numbers.
So what number would it be on, say, for a moderate weight material?
It's the middle number
Middle
of
number,
whatever
okay.
range of numbers you've got, you see. And then you adjust it slightly to one side or the other, but not by masses and masses. So then you've got the underneath thread. So having checked that, you see, you've then got your underneath thread, and it can be a spool that fits into one of those holders. There are all sorts of methods.
Yeah.
But whatever you do, if it's this one, you should be able to get hold of it, and as you just gently jiggle it, it should slide down the thread. This one
very
is a bit
gradually.
tight, see? So I can loosen it with that screw there. Some of them now have a screw which you can just loosen with your thumb like that.
Oh, yes.
But it's only a fraction. It's not wide.
I was so surprised, Mary, to meet him again. He'd been such a dreadful, dreadful 5-year-old. But I thought at 11 that, you know, he'd be equally bad. But he'd been away to boarding school, and all his mother's spoiling to me seemed to have not made any difference, and I was quite surprised about that.
I mean, he turned into a nice child instead of a horrid
yes,
child.
a really
I see.
quite pleasant sort of child.
That's all very well, of course, if it works for the child. I mean, I know. A child is sent away to boarding school and it destroyed him. Totally destroyed him. Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, you can't make hard and fast rules for children. It also depends entirely upon what you mean by spoiled. In what way was he spoiled?
Well, he was just so very... I mean, I couldn't quite believe it. He would say, I want an egg for my tea, and she'd give him the egg and he'd go, splat, and this egg would go on the floor and she'd pick it up and say, oh, now I've got to cook another egg, and things like that, and he would just kind of splat that
How
one.
old was this child?
5. Yes, and he'd kind of walk past and kick you, and she'd say, oh, don't do that, instead of giving him a good kick back. I felt that was spoiling him.
Instead of you giving him a good kick
Well, I
back,
didn't like to.
I've done that in the past with children.
Yeah, but I think that everyone hates spoiled children. don't they?
Yes.
Oh, my God, I can't stand it. But they don't think of hating the children who have produced the child. It's the parents' fault. It's not the... You can't blame the child for
No,
being
of course you
spoiled.
can't, and I don't. I think
Oh,
I
yes, I think everyone does.
A lot of people do. They don't like the child, obviously,
No.
because it's so hideous. But, I mean, anyone with a grain of intellect knows that that it is the parents that have ruined the child.
But there are different ways of spoiling a child. I mean, I'll spoil mine by allowing them certain privileges, like staying up late, say. Or I might decide to buy them something really quite expensive for Christmas. I bought my son a microscope, say. And I don't consider that spoiling them. But I can't bear to see children screaming in supermarkets and getting away with it. I mean, screaming for, say, a bar of chocolate and being given the bar of chocolate when I feel it should be given a good smack instead.
Well, at least the mother...
Yes,
I mean, if it's got to the screaming point, at least the mother is trying not to give in. I mean, that's better than just
Yes,
immediately
quite.
buying it before it starts.
But you feel absolutely dreadful, don't you? I mean, I think each of mine at some stage has done that in a shop where I wouldn't buy them something they wanted and they just had a tantrum. At that age when they have tantrums,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And you feel so awful when everybody turns around and glares at you as though it's your fault that the child's screaming. And in fact, you're trying to assert your discipline and not let them get spoiled.
What interests me, I don't know if you know about this, Maggie. I meant to ask Vida about it at some stage. Apparently, Italians spoil their children, in our sense of the word, up to the age of about 5.
Yes.
Up to 5,
Yes,
the
very
family,
much.
grandmothers and so on, let the baby do exactly what it likes.
Yeah, I
But
remember...
from 5 onwards, suddenly they're disciplined. Is
I
that
remember
right?
my
shock.
I
Yes.
don't think it works really that way. I think what happens is that a second child comes along and suddenly number 1 isn't numero uno anymore, is number 2. My niece, who was terribly spoiled, I mean to the extent that she would literally lie down on the floor in a supermarket until she got, say, the most expensive toy there. And that everybody would go in the checkbooks, get her quickly, please write a check, let's have this toy. And I remember standing in amazement and thinking, well, this is ridiculous.
This is Italian.
isn't it? Yeah, this child's an absolute tyrant at 3 and 4 and 5. And my immediate reaction was to smack her in the behind hard, you know. And they couldn't understand where I got aerated. But still, her brother was born.
Now, just before you rush off and do your 42s, let me tell you what we have here on Southern this afternoon. We have Charlie's Moonshining Angels, and then we have Emmerdale Farm at 3:45, and then at 4:15, the statement from the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Well, those are programmes coming up later here on Southern.
This skirt cost only £2.50 from the Oxfam shop.
This jacket cost only £5 from the Oxfam shop.
This whole outfit cost only £10, the Oxfam shop.
This suit cost £150 from my tailor's. I wish I'd gone to the Oxfam shop.
You'll be surprised what you can get from the Oxfam shop.
The Kenwood Chef system does everything other food processors can do, but better. For instance, other processors chop meat to look like this. The chef, with additional attachments, minces meat to look like this. And only with a chef can you have fun making sausages, peel potatoes, grind coffee, and now make all sorts of delicious pasta. The Kenwood Chef system does more, does it better.
Here's a girl who didn't know how to make the most of her figure. No one noticed her until she tried Cross Your Heart from Playtex, the bra with the unique Cross Your Heart styling to lift and shape perfectly. Now she knows how to make the most of her figure. Cross Your Heart from Playtex. Make the most of your figure.
There you are, boy.
When your dog shows his devotion for you, then shouldn't you show how much you care for him? Choose something you know he loves. Pal with marrowbone. After all, your dog loves the taste of marrowbone. The same marrowbone he gets in Pal, and there's all the firm, meaty nourishment he needs. Pal with marrowbone. Doesn't your dog deserve Pal every day?
It's been one of those days. Nothing feels right. Things are not as bad as you think. Make a cup of Cadbury's drinking chocolate, a soothing chocolate drink. Make a cup of Cadbury's.
Sunbeam introduces the Dual 185 iron to help make ironing better. There's shot of steam power to beat even creased denim. So much power that it keeps itself clean. Inside, we've actually put a jewel, hard enough to prevent clogging, so you can fill with tap water. And Sunbeam's tap water irons give you a choice of designs and every modern feature. The new Sunbeam shot of steam irons. Sunbeam, make it better.
I reckon these cannons are getting heavier. Still last one today.
Ah, the Cannon 152. Is it still built on a chassis?
Yes, madam. And made with thicker steel than most other cookers.
Good and solid, and yet designed with such elegance. Unique fold-away rotisserie and grill, automatic cooking controls, sealed hot plate.
And there's £50 off, madam.
How soon could you deliver?
That's done it. Lads.
Cannon. We build cookers.
Put on the style with a smile, put on the flair with the hair, put on the tricks with the lips, and the surprise with the eyes, and then put on the accent, put on the accent.
Accent, a great new fragrance that won't go unnoticed. Accent, a fragrance as different from the rest as you are. So, if you want to be a little different from the crowd,
Put on the accent, put on the accent.
Accent by Solitaire, a fragrance as original as you are. Accent, put it on.
Once there was an age when thousands around the world flocked to Nickelodeon parlors, theaters, and picture palaces to witness what was to them a new miracle. For this was the time of the birth of the cinema, the motion picture, the very beginning of the first truly mass entertainment industry. You know, I can't really remember anymore the first movie I ever saw, but I do remember vividly the movie that most impressed me when I was a child. It was a serial starring that greatest of all the magicians and escape artists, Harry Houdini. Actually, he was even more famous on the stage and in vaudeville, because I can remember seeing him in the old New York Hippodrome, and he'd tie himself up in chains, and they'd put him in a sack and dump him in a tank of water, and somehow he'd get out. But this time, it was in a serial, and week after week, my cousins and I would troop back to the theater to see what magic Houdini would work to get out of that seeming